Hi there, Trailblazer. My name is Cam, and in this video, we're going to talk about building your very first email in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. We're showing you a few tips and tricks as you build your email in Content Builder, an exercise you can try for yourself to become more familiar with Content Builder in Marketing Cloud. So to start off with, we are here on the Marketing Cloud dashboard page. This will be the first page that you enter when you log into Marketing Cloud. Now for our email build today, we could go into Email Studio, into Email, and then choose from the Content option. But for today, let's choose Content Builder and then click on Content Builder again. This will take us to the Content Builder app inside Marketing Cloud. Okay, and once the page refreshes, we can see the interface for Content Builder. Now to show you around, on the top left-hand side here, we have the Local and Shared Content tabs. In the Local tab, we can explore the content in this local business unit, as well as the folders that we can see here. In the Shared tab, we'll see any content that's been shared to this business unit. On the main screen here, we have the main content viewing screen. You can see here the content will show by name and type and modified date. You can choose to sort this content by different options as well. Choose the ascending or descending option, show or change how the content shows, as well as change what fields we can see, and apply a filter to filter the content that we're seeing. But of course, for today, we're building an email, so let's focus on the Create button in the top right-hand corner. For today, we'll press on Create, and we're going to choose to create a new email message. So now we are creating our email. The first thing we have to do is to decide what template to use for our email build. Now in Marketing Cloud, the template is the foundation and the structure of our email message. It's the framework that contains all the HTML to make sure our email is formatted correctly, and it has all the CSS code needed to make sure our email looks good on desktop and mobile clients. Now, Marketing Cloud comes pre-packaged with a few basic templates to choose from. You can see here some different styles and formatting that we could choose from. But for today, for our first email, let's choose the empty option, and we'll choose the blank page template and then choose Select. Now the reason for this is because the blank page template contains no existing formatting. It's just the bare bones, the CSS code that we need to make our email from scratch. And with our blank page selected, we can now define the properties of our email. On our properties page, we'll be given a choice to enter the email name, a description, location to save our email to, and a way to tag up our email against a campaign. We can also choose some sharing options and the language that we'll use for our email. We won't touch these settings, but for today, let's just call our email test. And with that done, we'll press on the Next button. Okay, so now we're getting to the good stuff. We can now see that we are on the main email building screen for Content Builder. Now to take you around the interface, on the top left-hand side, we can go back into Content Builder. We can also navigate backwards into our Properties screen and forwards again to our Content screen. We can use the same thing with the Back and Next buttons. On the left-hand side panel here is our Content palette. Now here we can choose from various blocks, content that we've saved previously, layouts, and the design, which is the template that we chose earlier, to add to our email. In the main screen here, we can see our subject line and pre-header fields. We can also see three different views, the default plain text and code view to render our email. We also get this module here to change the email's design from desktop into mobile to make sure our email is still mobile responsive. So now that you understand the interface for Content Builder, let's talk about the content blocks that we can add to our email. On the left-hand side screen here, we can see the basic content blocks. Now each of these blocks can be dragged and dropped onto our email into our content zone. When you drag a content block in, you get the interface panel here, where you can modify some of the properties of that content block. Using the button content block, I can now modify the button's text. I can also modify the font size and font color, and some more properties here as well. So in addition to the button content block, we also have the code snippet content block, which is used for saving and reusing code snippets. We have the freeform and text content blocks, used for using a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, word processing engine inside of Marketing Cloud to type out and modify the format of text. We have the HTML block, which allows us to write raw HTML into our email, and of course the image block for placing images inside of our email. Now we do have some more content blocks below in the advanced and interactive content blocks, but since this is our first email build, we won't cover those ones today. We'll just focus on our basic blocks that we need to build today's email. In addition to the blocks we've got pre-configured inside Marketing Cloud, we also have layouts. Now, layouts are the ability inside your Marketing Cloud template to pre-structure how your content will react. You can see here a 1-column with 2 content block layout. We can drag that into our email, which allows us to have 2 content zones that are stacked. We have also the 2-column layout. We can drag and drop that one in as well, making sure that we check where that blue line is, because that's where the content block will be added to our email. We now have a 2-column layout. Now our layout has some additional configurations that we can put into it. For example, the configuration for this 2-column layout allows us to change the vertical split to have a 25-75 or any combination of those 2 columns. We can also change the spacing between those 2 columns. You can see that spacing there. We can increase that spacing or drop it right down to 0. Now again, there's heaps more layouts that come pre-configured inside Marketing Cloud, as well as some that do have some content placeholders for you. But for today, we'll just focus on some of these first ones as we build our first email. Now what we'll do, we'll clean off our deck to start with. We can do that by hovering over a content area and choosing the drop down here and choosing the delete option. So let's clean up what we've done so far and return back to our blank canvas. And there we are. All right, so now we're ready to build our first email. All we're missing is an email to build. Now, as an email marketer, one of my favorite resources is reallygoodemails.com. It's a fantastically expert curated selection of emails from across the world that are really good emails. Now what we'll do today is, since our first build is going to be in Marketing Cloud, I think it's only fair that we use a Salesforce email as our first email build. Let's type Salesforce in the search bar. Let's find a nice, easy email build for today. I think this one here looks pretty good. Create emails that motivate your customers with Email Studio. Fantastic. Once we've clicked into the email, we can choose the View All Info button to see our email up close. So for today, let's try and rebuild this email inside Marketing Cloud. You can see here we've got a nice header piece, a hero image with some padding on the side. Got a nice big H1 heading there, a bit of text and a button as well. Now we might stop our email build there, since most of the rest of this content looks to be the same, heading, text and button. So we'll just focus on making this first section of this email inside our Marketing Cloud. Okay, so let's start off by making some of the base components that we need to recreate this email. Now the email itself had the Salesforce Customer Success logo up the top, and it was left aligned and it had some space to the right. So one of the cool tricks we can do is use a layout with our 2-column layout. And then the left-hand side one here, we'll put an image and we'll leave the right-hand side one blank for now. And below that, there's going to be a little blue line, but that's okay. We can configure that inside of our layout. Now after that, there's a bit of space, a bit of white space, followed by the hero image. So we'll use our blocks again. We can go into our image and drag an image down below that layout piece, and that'll be our Email Studio image there. Now below that, there's going to be a heading, so we can use the text block for our heading. Below that, of course, is going to be our main body text, so we use another text block. And then below that one more time is going to be our button, so of course we can use our button content block. And there we go. That's going to be our top menu piece of the email, the hero image, the heading, the main body content, and then the button. All right, so now we're ready to start filling in the content for this email. Now what we'll do is, back on reallygoodemails.com, a really cool trick is to click on the code button, which actually exposes the HTML code used to make this email. This is useful because if we're going to recreate this email, we want to recreate those images as well. What we can do is we can right-click on this image and use the Inspect option inside Chrome to see the link to this image. And there is our image there. We can double-click on it to select the text for the image and press Copy. We then go back into Content Builder and go into our first layout here. Open the image block, and you can see here it says to insert the URL. You can then paste that URL, and there's the image inside Marketing Cloud. Now this image is a little bit too big. We have to make it a bit smaller, so we'll untick the Scale button. We can then manually set the dimensions for this image, and I think it's about 200 pixels. Feels about right. Now the image itself is going to be center aligned on mobile mode. So we'll make sure that it's going to have some padding on the left when it's on desktop. It's going to center align when it goes into mobile. So what we can do is on our image block here, we can modify our block settings and give our block here some padding. We'll unlock these 4 padding sections to modify them independently. Let's give this block about 30 pixels left and right. It's going to get some padding there. We click Done, we'll now enter the layout settings that were inside here for our 2-column layout. What we'll do is we'll make the left-hand column a little thinner, just to push that content all the way to the left. You can see it is there, enough padding on the side, and it's just being pushed to the left. If we go Done, we can then check this out for ourselves to make sure that it's going to be left aligned on desktop, then center aligned on mobile, by changing from desktop to mobile. And there we go, it goes center on mobile, and back to left on desktop. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing to add is going to be that little blue underline that goes across the top of our email. If we jump back into Really Good Emails, to get that little blue underline, we can find the color code by having a quick look at the top of our email. We can right click here and go Inspect. And if we just check a little higher, we can see here the bottom border, 2 pixels solid, and that's the color just there. So you can copy that color. You can see the same color as here in our Chrome Inspector. So you can see it's that nice blue color. You can take that color, we can copy it, go back into our content builder. Let's go into our layout settings again. And on our layout, let's go to the layout settings. We can choose to put a border in. Now the border itself, we can choose a color by typing in here the hash symbol as well as that color code. And there's our color. Now it's not going to be a 1 pixel border the entire way around. We want it to be 2 pixels at the bottom only. So what I want to do here is we want to unlock that modifier, so we can modify these 4 points independently and choose 2 pixels for the bottom. So press 2 there and we'll give our color back. And so there is that line right there. And go Done, and then I'll now show that little blue line across the bottom of that content block. We can go back and check it in mobile as well. And there it is, still there, just above the image. Looking good. Okay, the next thing to build is that big hero image. So yet again, we'll go back into Really Good Emails. We can right click on that image and inspect, and we can hopefully just look inside of this link, and there is the image just there. Yet again, we'll double click, copy the image URL, go back into Content Builder. On our image block, we can then paste the URL, and there is our image. Now on the original, we can see there's about a 20 or 30 pixel padding between the top of our email and where this hero starts. So in our image block, we need to go into our block settings, we need to add some space. Now I'm going to use the margin setting this time. We'll again unlock it, let's put 30 pixels at the top. It's going to bump that down. Now one thing to notice is that the email itself had a grey background. And check that by going back into our email. You can see here it's actually got that grey background behind it. So we can again inspect that grey background, get the background color, there it is there. We can go back into our content builder, and to modify the background in our template, we'll go into the design tab. You can see on our design, we can go to the template, and sure enough, there is our background. Let's modify that background to that gray color, and there it is. That's just the outside periphery of this email. We also want the content background to be that color as well. And there we go. Now that padding, that space between the top of our email and that hero image is going to show us that gray color. And now we have to go back into our layout and make sure this layout has a white background. So I'll go back onto our layout settings, and for background, we're going to choose white. And there we go. That is now that top piece of the email complete with the 30 pixel padding before the main part of the email starts, kicking off with that hero image. Okay, let's now go in and we'll copy the text from the email as well. You can close down the inspector and just copy the text directly from the email on Really Good Emails. Go into our content again, we can paste that content directly in. We'll go Done, back again, we'll copy this text as well and paste it into the second text content area. As you can see, that does not look anything like the original email. We're going to have to make some small modifications to the content. So first things first, let's modify that block to make sure it has the white background, just like the original email does. We also need to make sure it's got some padding because the original email had about, what is that, about 40 pixels on the top, left, and right for that first heading. So again, we can go into our padding section here. We can type 40. If we leave it locked, it's going to add 40 pixels around all sides to that text. Now the text size, we can select our text, we can modify the size here. Let's make that nice and big. A little bigger. And we'll go size 30. That's about right. That's size 30. Next we'll do the same thing, but for the text below. So same steps again. We're going to want to add in some of that padding. We've already got 30 pixels or 40 pixels on the above piece here. You can see we've got 40 added top, left, bottom, and right. So we don't want to add the same amount of padding around all sides for this content block. Instead, in our content block, let's first add 40, so it adds it to all the sides. Then we'll unlock it and remove the padding from our top, which will make that content fit up a bit higher, closer towards that heading. Of course, we need that background to be white as well, so let's make that white. And what we need to is a bit of line height, because I think this text is too close together. So we can go back into our content editor, we can choose our text, and we'll find our line height here. Let's choose 1.5. There we are. It's a bit more spaced out now, which looks pretty good. What we'll now do, we've done some editing. It's always good to check to make sure our email is still mobile responsive. Let's go into our viewer here and choose mobile. And we can see here that the line height's not quite right for that text, maybe because it bumps over 2 lines. So what we can do is we can go back into here and try and modify our line height to set it so it's a bit more spaced. Alternatively, we can bring the size down just a fraction so it doesn't bump over 2 lines when we go into mobile view. That's pretty good for mobile. Let's check again on desktop. Looking good for desktop as well. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. So let's finish off our last content block, the button. We'll go back into really good emails, and we need to copy the text for our button as well as that color code. You can see from our button that's going to have some slightly rounded corners and a bit more padding on the left and right than there is on the top and bottom. So we'll copy the text, we'll go into our button content block and paste our text in. You can also copy the color by right-clicking, going inspect, and copying that color code. Make sure we copy that color code and paste it into the background of our button. Just like that, and there it is. Now for our block settings, we'll go in and change the background to white as well to match the rest of our content in our email. We'll make that button left aligned as it is on desktop. We'll also make sure that the padding is in line with the rest of our content, which was 40 pixels. So we'll go into our block settings, change our padding, make it 40 pixels, but not all the way around. That's too much padding on the top and bottom. So we'll go back into our padding, unlock it, and remove that padding from the top. Just scooch that button back up a little bit there so it's close to our content. It's looking pretty good. There's one last thing, that left and right padding. So we'll go into the content and we'll have a look at our button padding here. We can increase the padding top and bottom. About 12 or 13 looks pretty good. And for our left and right, we can unlock that padding, modify these independently, I think about 30 pixels left and right, make it a lot closer to the original email. And there we are. We now have the top of our email, that hero content image, the heading and the text, as well as the button blocks all complete. Now I know what you're thinking, why do we have this blank content block here? Well, the really cool thing about Marketing Cloud is that if there's no content, then it won't render that section of the email. So to test our email out, we need to give ourselves a subject line first. So let's just put in subject line as our subject line. We can go done. And to preview our email, we just click on the next button to move to our preview screen. What we'll see is our email rendered, and because there was no content in that block on the side, you can see it's collapsed that section and it looks just like the original. So we still have that blue line, we have that white background with our Salesforce logo, the main header image, as well as the heading, the body text, and the button there as well. Now, obviously we did not perfectly recreate the email today, but for our very first email build inside Marketing Cloud, that is pretty close to a real-world production email. Now, of course, you could spend some more time modifying the content we've used so far to make it more closely resemble the original email, but for today, that's a pretty good job in our first email build. So my challenge for you today is to go back into really good emails and to finish off this email build, going all the way down to the footer. And once you're done, go back into that Salesforce searched emails that we found earlier, choose one more email and rebuild it for yourself. Building these emails from an existing one is a really good way to familiarize yourself with the functions inside Marketing Cloud and become more accustomed to how the content blocks work when you're building your emails. And that'll do it for today's video. I hope you found it useful and you picked up some great tips and tricks for how to build your own emails inside Marketing Cloud. If you've enjoyed this video, please do press that like button and let me know in the comments below how you go building your own emails using today's tips and tricks. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified when I release more Salesforce Marketing Cloud content.